Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success Talk Show. My name is Rochelle, Slay Queen Hemingway, CEO and founder of Slay to Success. I advise and empower women professionals, especially women veterans, to step up into their most authentic personal brand to gain lucrative opportunities. And we're focusing on 4 different areas: appearance, behaviors, communication skills, and digital presence. That's right, the ABCDs. And y'all, tonight we bring in SLAYMAZING guests. I have another one that I'm so excited to talk to this evening. And the purpose of this show is to bring in men and women who are living life on their own terms, and they're using the SLAY philosophies. That's right. SLAY means to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point, to impress greatly, to dream big and work hard until you own it. It is also an acronym which stands for Universal Life and Leadership Philosophies that really resonated with me the most, and I hope that they resonate with you too. That is stay ready to be ready, lead out loud, a sense of community, a sense of family, and knowing you are built to last. So if you are here with us tonight, please make sure that you tell us who you are, where you're streaming in, so that we can give you the proper shout out. Okay. I am a professional keynote speaker, a certified image consultant, a personal brand expert, an author of 4 books. That's right. And also a 30-year United States Air Force veteran. So as we continue the conversation, we are going to be really talking about redefine resilience tonight. Okay, so if you are willing to stay, okay, because it is going to be about an hour, grab a beverage of your choice. I have mine in my cup, okay? And let's just get settled in, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the gems that we are going to hear tonight, because my guest, she is not playing. Okay. So let me just share with you a little bit about who I have tonight. I have Dr. Arielle Jordan, and she is a veteran. She's an author, a trauma therapist, and a mental wellness speaker. And she's known for her calm, courageous approach to grief, loss, and resilience. Drawing on her military experience and personal journey, she equips organizations and leaders with practical tools to strengthen mental wellness and navigate challenges. Dr. Arielle's solution-focused keynotes and workshops inspire real change, covering topics such as grief, trauma, emotional intelligence, and veteran support. She holds a bachelor's degree from Delaware State University and both a master's and doctorate from Walden University. So I want you all to put your hands together for my friend, okay, because we just went out to lunch, y'all. And so we are continuing the conversation tonight for my friend, Dr. Arielle, okay? Hey, Queen.
Hey, what a
Hey.
wonderful welcome.
Yes, all my guests on the show, we make sure, okay, that we give you the proper welcome, make you feel safe in this space. We've already got Camille in the building. Hey, good evening, Camille. She's also an Air Force veteran. Okay. So she's here and she is doing amazing things. She's also a speaker, author, all the things. So I'm here for it. She's here for it. So thank you so much for being here, Camille, with us live. Okay. We also got Sharice. She is another Air Force veteran. Okay. My queens are showing up tonight. Okay. They want to know who you are and they want to know your story. So thank you so much, Sharice, for being here with us live tonight. And just really being a part of the conversation, because we're going to have a great conversation tonight. So before we get started, I know y'all, it's Christmas. Okay. There's like 2.5 days, really, maybe.
Right? Wow.
It's already here. Okay, so hopefully everybody got the Christmas shopping done and they got all in holiday spirit, whatever the case may be. Okay, I am done.
Listen,
I'm done.
I'm not even finished yet. I still got a little something to do.
No, I'm not trying to be in these stores right now. This is to be too crazy. Okay. Oh, Betty, thank you so much for being here. How you doing?
Okay.
Look at this. Mama is showing up. Okay.
Yep.
much for showing up and being a part of this conversation. I know you look, she's so proud of her daughter. She just don't know what she do with herself. So she's going to do amazing on the show tonight. So tell us a little bit about who you are and let's get started in a conversation. We're going to continue our conversation because we just had lunch. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely did a great job covering who I am. Basically, I love to help people move forward when we get to those stuck points in our life where maybe we're so busy that we're taking care of everyone else, we neglect ourselves. Like I really want to push people to wait a minute, we could be hustling, but we can also have some harmony as well. So
mm,
our purpose is really to kind of bridge that gap that we may not have been taught, that way. It's got to be this way or that way. So I help people find that middle ground so that they can live well. That's really my purpose.
yeah. I love that, like the hustle and you can be and, right? And have harmony,
Mhm.
instead of the but, because we always hear, you can do this, but, so let's find the what do you call it? Like having being in coexistence, both of them being in the same.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about like you in your journey. You were in the army.
Hmm.
So tell us how that came to be. Okay. And then a little bit about your book. And so your book that you got right there in your corner is called Holding Space. Now you look, y'all, I got the book right here. Okay. So I'm be making some references to this is a good read, especially if you are dealing with some traumatic losses. So, but anyways, Dr. Arielle is going to tell us a little bit about her journey. So tell us about getting into the army and then, kind of, some of the incidences that have occurred.
Yeah, so I joined the army at age 17. I actually had graduated high school at age 16, and I was working at McDonald's at that time. I was like, you know what? This is not how I want to live. Like, I don't want to just work at McDonald's. Although, I mean, I had a good time as a 16-year-old
Oh,
working at
yeah.
McDonald's. It was fine, but I knew that there was more, and
Mhm.
I didn't know the steps. So for me, I was like, you know what? I'm a I'm gonna join the army. And it was not anything I ever planned to do. I literally took the ASVAB because they said we could miss class. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go take this test where we're gonna be gone for a couple hours.
Oh, wow.
So, but I ended up doing well, which is crazy. But I ended up doing well. And then by the time I got to the recruiting office, they were like, okay, you scored high on your ASVAB. Which job do you want? And I had a list of things that I could do, and I said, which one can I leave quickest? And so it was a culinary specialist. So I was like, that's the one. I like to cook. Why not?
Right.
And I took that job. And then the next thing I knew, my recruiter's taking me to the MEP station, at Fort Meade. And that's where I shipped out from. I went to Fort Jackson and did my basic training. And then after Fort Jackson, I went to a reserve unit. So I switched to the reserves, and then I
Yeah.
went to a unit in West Virginia, which is where I got all my book material from.
Hmm.
Because this unit was a nightmare. I was not like warmly welcomed there, and it just became thing after thing after thing. And so I know, people can relate to the everyday microaggressions and
Hmm.
how much that weighs on us. And so every time I would be around, in this unit, that's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with oh, we might want to change the music station because Jordan might not want to hear that. Or, just little, I'm like, I'm cleaning my gun just like the rest of y'all. But there was always these little comments. And there was a time where it just became too much for me. And my sergeant that I had to work closely with, he said the N word because our kitchen had like a window where like maybe you
Hmm.
couldn't see who's on the other side. So then he said the N word, not to me, but he was using it as a verb. because somebody that was the same rank as him was telling him what to do. So he used it as a verb. And I was like, okay. So then I came out of the room. He was like, oh, I didn't know you were in there. That's not an apology, as we know, right? I didn't know you were in there. So by then I was like up to here. And I tried to make a equal opportunity complaint, and it was supposed to be confidential. It was not. So now talk about feeling seen, and that's how I felt. And so it was a very scary time being there because reserve units get deployed just like active duty. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these people do not have my back at home. How the hell is it going to be when we're deployed?
Right.
So it's a fear. And I had also come back from like active duty orders one time and tore my shoulder, and they were not helping me to get my shoulder taken care of. So I had to take out a congressional on my unit to get my shoulder surgery paid for. So it was just wild, time after time. And then being at some point, I became pregnant when I was 21, and my pregnancy was high risk. So high risk pregnancy, you're supposed to be in the bed. So I'm not reporting like I'm supposed to, but I'm getting marked unexcused, even though they know the reason why I'm not reporting, and I can prove all of it. I have receipts. So it's just crazy. It's like now this. And then my daughter ended up having a terminal illness. So the last thing I was thinking about was the Army. I was trying to be there for my daughter. And we ended up having to go to Boston. Boston Children's Hospital had a trial study for her. So we went to Boston. I stopped reporting because my daughter is the most important thing right now. And then we were in the hospital for about a year. And then we were able to come back home to be seen at DC Children's. But eventually she did lose her life when she was 18 months old. And so I didn't get a card. I didn't get are you okay? How are you making it? Like, they did not care. So I had got out a month before she died. I got placed in the inactive ready reserves. And then I was like, you know what? Now that she's gone, I don't know what to do with myself. Put me back in. And I spoke to a recruiter, told him all of this. He was like, okay, I got your back. This man did not have my back. Okay. He told me to sign some paperwork so that he could get me the job that I wanted, which was now human resources. I signed the paper, and he put me back in the Army as a culinary specialist, like I asked him not to do. And he moved to California, never heard from this man again. So I was now in the Army at Fort Belvoir and did not know it because he just kind of submitted the paperwork on my behalf. So I went to Delaware State trying to restart my life. I lost my father right after losing my daughter. So, and I'm also going through a divorce at this time. So I'm like, I need to just move away. I need to start over. I'm gonna go back to school. I already had my associate's degree. So I was like, I'm going to go back to school. And that's what got me interested in psychology, because I'm like, how the hell am I okay?
Like all this right here, y'all, listen, okay? I'm going to tell you. Okay, first we're going to, before we go on, Dr. Jordan, there's several comments here. First, we've got Sharisa says she likes the and too. Why do I show up for the right message tonight? Because that's what you're doing, all right? It's divinely made for you to hear these messages and to really understand that we don't have to be, told that we can't do this too, all right? We got a lot going on, and it's okay, right? And then Chevy's here. Thank you so much, Queen, for being here live with us tonight.
Yeah.
And Jan Quill is here on LinkedIn, and she says my condolences. So my condolences too. I know we talked earlier this week about it, and going through, the situation. So I watched 688 last night. Me and my husband, we were like, well, we got to watch this movie, right? And what you were describing, where it's very similar to the way that
Mm,
they were treated.
mhm,
Um, but it was with just outright disrespectful. It was just not, you know, something
mhm.
that you would think that would continue to go on. But, you weren't in the military like, years and years ago. I mean, you just, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? And so
yeah.
these types of things are happening more so than not. And we
Mhm.
have to navigate through a system that was not designed for us to succeed in the first place because we weren't even thought about.
Art.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then now your experiences in a unit where, you have to deploy with them. And it's like, well, you're treating me in such a way, you following the congressional and let alone you are young, you know,
Yes.
you
Yes.
are young. And most of us, when we get to certain points like that, we get a little bit older and a little bit more wiser about how to pursue the complaint system. But you started to see that that was an avenue for you to
Mhm.
do. But in the midst, all these different losses, because
Yeah.
not only did you lose your daughter, you lost your father, and you lost military, if you will. And that's a loss that sometimes we don't acknowledge,
Absolutely.
you
There's
know?
layers of grief even in racism, like
Mm,
that loss of camaraderie of somebody who I thought had my back. I can't change what I look like. I get up every day and have this color skin.
that's right.
So, now I'm grieving and it's very isolating, because
Mhm.
now you have to keep to yourself and, we have to kind of be the ones to think over and over again, should I speak up? Should I not speak up? Did I say that right? Did I not say that right?
Mhm.
And we're really constantly policing ourselves, which gets exhausting, you know.
Yes.
And you think about even in these spaces when you're like meeting other people and you're trying to like I don't code switch. I'm not going to. I'm me. When you see me today on the show and you
Mhm.
go see somewhere else, I'm that same person that I'm gonna be because that's what I know. And I used to, and I know like the difference, but I'm not masking myself. I've
Yeah.
gotten to that point where I'm like, no, I'm gonna show up as me. And that's how I attract the right people in my
Yeah.
life. Because if you don't like me, then that's okay. We can
Mm,
coexist, but I show up authentic so that my circle can be authentic as well.
yeah. That's beautiful.
Mhm,
The first book that you wrote, which like we were alluding to, was Holding Space.
mhm.
And it says your story of grief, remembering and thriving after traumatic loss.
Yes.
So, over the past couple of days, I've been in your book. And I said, what in here is really resonating with me? And what came up was you talked about the end of suffering.
Mm.
You don't need to suffer. Now today, y'all, we went to church this morning and the pastor was talking about, suffering doesn't always last, but it is a part of the journey, if you will.
Yep.
Because anything worth having and, anything worth getting to, there has to be a little bit of, I wouldn't say grind, but it's
Mhm.
like you're constantly trying to do something, you're trying to figure out how to master it. And
Yep.
so sometimes you're failing a little bit in it, but you continue to show up, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, so but you talk about, you know, um radical acceptance.
Mhm.
And you say you must learn to keep the experiences from suffering.
Yep.
You said, I lost my daughter. That pain can be excruciating, but I must accept the reality and not live there stuck in bitterness, anger, and sadness because that is not beneficial to my life. I am not required to suffer because something bad happened to me.
Yep.
So, you know, how did you get to radical acceptance.
Oh boy.
Yeah, then we going deep today.
Woo, yeah, that was a journey for real. Um, how did I get there? Okay, so I remember a turning point. I kind of checked out after losing my dad because Jordan is that's my daughter's name. She passed in January, and then my dad passed in April.
Mm,
And I kind of checked out a bit. I was like, I don't even know what to do with myself at this point. And I remember not doing well with that. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go sit in her room, and I'd be there for like hours. I would get stuck. Um, and I
mm,
would just be so sad. But obviously, it's sad to lose your child, right? So you're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to grieve.
yeah.
And then I started to think, well, I gotta eat. So what am I gonna eat today? And it was very, very much moment by moment at that time period. And I remember my brother was going through something at the same time. And so then we'd be checking on each other. You eat today?
Mm,
Nah, I ain't eat today. Did you? All right, come on, let's go get something to eat. And
right.
that was a little bit of a encouragement there. And I think it was like October by the time I kind of like checked back in.
Mm,
So it was a gap. And I remember kind of like looking in the mirror, like it was my October is my birthday. So, around our birthday, most of the time we'll check in. We'll be like, all right, where am I at this year? Where do I want to be? It's like a new year for us. It's our
yeah,
birthday
yeah,
for most people.
yeah.
And so I'm doing that. And I'm like, all right, I can't stay here. I cannot do this. And where I grow up, it's Front Royal, Virginia is a small town.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone knows you. Everyone
Mm,
knows that you just had two big losses and
mm,
the divorce as well. So like, it's a very small town. People talking about you or they're just informed about you. And
mm.
so I would go to Walmart, just to go get some eggs or something and somebody's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I was trying to be, but then when people come up to you like that, it's like, "Oh God, I'm not okay." So
Mhm.
eventually I was like, I gotta get out of here. And if I gotta get out of here, what's the easiest way to get out of here? Almost, I guess, the same thing that I did for the military. I gotta get out of
Mhm,
here. What do I do
mhm.
that? But this time it was school. I was like, I'm gonna go have the campus experience and finish my degree. My first degree is in business, and then I didn't want to do business anymore. So I guess some of the healing started with my psychology program, started learning
Mm,
how the brain works. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting stuff. So I kept it going. I'm like, okay, well, one of the things about going to college was I get to be whoever I want to be. They don't
mhm.
know all the other stuff. I get to share it as I please, which I did end up sharing it in a women's ministry group, but I didn't have to. That wasn't my
Yeah.
only identity. And so that helped to get some space away from it. And then I started to think like, so radical acceptance comes from dialectic behavior therapy, where two things can be true. And
Mm,
when you think about it, so like my best friends have kids that are the same age. I can be happy for them and love their kids, but I can also be sad for me. Two
mm,
things are true. And so when we think about the concept of radical acceptance itself, we don't have to like it or condone it. It just is. So,
mhm,
like, obviously, I don't like it. I don't love it that my daughter's not here, but the reality is she's not. So, because she's not, that acceptance has taken place. She's not here. What
yeah.
else am I going to do? So, then it allows for curiosity to happen. What else can happen?
Mm,
Because I've accepted at least the reality part that she's not here. I don't like it. I don't like it any day, right? But
absolutely.
we gotta move forward. So I let those feelings visit, but they don't have to move in. I
Yeah.
just they can come and sit for a little bit. I can be sad. I can, be down, but they're not gonna move in. I'm not gonna stay here.
I love that. I lost my dad, y'all. I can't even think straight. I lost my dad the day I started my degree.
Mm,
And it was a choice between stopping the
right.
program or moving forward. Even though knowing I have to, like help my mom through, some of the,
Mhm.
financials and so forth and flying back and forth. And it did allow the space. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, yes, I knew that this was a heavy situation and we all had to be involved to support my mom to make sure that she had what she needed, but also I was pursuing the degree,
Yeah,
So, if anyone is, dealing with grief, and we all probably at this point in our lives, most of us have dealt with grief. And
mhm.
it's very, like you said, very complex, when it comes to
Absolutely.
the loss. But I
Yes.
do like when you talked about what is the what is it called again?
Oh, dialectic behavior therapy.
Dialectic behavior. And
Mhm.
so I like that those, two things, you could be
Yeah,
both,
absolutely.
and
A
giving
lot of
yourself
people
permission to do that.
Yeah, a lot of people think like it has to be this way or it has to be that way. And now sometimes that's true. Like if we're talking about like somebody going in doing surgery on us, we want it to be this or that, right?
Absolutely.
But if it's something like grief, it's messy. It is so
Mhm.
messy. It will never be from point A to B. It will never be, oh, here's the 5 stages of grief, and you're going to go through all of them in order. Like, that's not how it works. We show up how we show up. But the thing is, I think the key is to either, well, I guess to make meaning from it and to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so,
Mhm.
like, as you're describing what it was like for you to lose your father, like, there's also this sort of a drive behind it. Like, okay, I still have to go to school. I still have to kind of help mom,
Mhm.
and there's meaning behind
Yes.
it. Now I'm gonna live my life for my daughter because I still want to be the mom that I would be if she was here. I think she would
Mhm.
still be proud.
Yeah.
Somehow it's the meaning is different now. And so
Yeah.
I think like that's kind of how we can choose to move forward, even though we're hurting.
Yeah. Man, this is so good. Y'all, this is so good. All right. Make sure you share and make sure you're writing down this information so you can share with your friends and your circles. So that way you can help them as they're going through the journey. And Leslie, good evening to you, my madam. How you doing? Glad that you could show up live with us. And she had a previous one that I pulled up earlier when you said show up authentic, because your circle then can show up authentic, right? And then
Absolutely.
she also says, thank you for sharing, as some people get stuck in the story for decades and
Yes.
cannot move forward.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes I think it's because we don't know how, and no
Mhm.
one's ever had this conversation. Think about, I mean, even culturally, right? What happens
Yeah.
in this house stays in this house. So
Mhm.
we're not going to talk about it. It's like a stigma to talk about it. So if that's the case, what do I do with this, right? And one of my speaking engagements that I did last year, I did a grief seminar for high school students, and it was 12 of them that came, and we talked about grief and what to do with it and resilience and all of those topics. But day one, I just asked them, who did they lose?
Mhm.
Um, what did they miss about them?
Mhm.
And how did their life change without this person? And when I tell you the whole room was waterworks, when they started the
Oh.
session like this, they didn't want to, like, they started like this. It was a Saturday morning. They're like, what she got to say? And
Mhm.
I went around and asked that waterworks, every single one of them. They're hurting. So then we ripped the band-aid off. Day one, we ripped the band-aid off. Everybody's feeling their feelings, which
Yeah.
is fine. And I always, when I start a group, especially like a group like that, I set the ground rules.
Mhm.
So we whatever is happening here. We don't need to go and share so and so was crying because of this or whatever.
That's
And
right.
so we create a safe space, but this is what happens. And then I'm busting the myths, grief's supposed to go away within 1 year, yes or no? And they'd be like, yeah, no, absolutely not. That person's gone forever. You will grieve forever. Now, what
Mm,
your grief looks like, that's a little bit different. We can kind of talk more about that. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful workshop, but I realized that they just didn't know what to do with it. Nobody's talking about
yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's hard. It's very hard to talk about your feelings
Yeah,
because sometimes it sparks up these emotions that you really don't want to really deal with right there in the moment, right?
absolutely.
I found myself, I caught myself like driving down the road and one memory,
Mm,
and it just you're crying and it's like what
mm,
happened? What just happened, And it
mhm,
just comes from nowhere sometimes. So just
mm.
have to make sure that we acknowledge like these things are going to happen for us, and it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. We've got several comments already, Dr. Ariel. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you just speaking it up in here.
Love
Hey
that.
Dwayne, how you doing? And he says our experience to help others who may be struggling through those situations. God bless you.
Mm.
So I think of just having us talking about this and to sharing is so important to pass on. Camille said that's very important. My daughter lost her father at 11, and
Mm.
it took 8 years for her to speak about him. We had
Yeah.
our first conversation last
Yeah.
month. Wow.
Ah, that's beautiful. I'm
Oh
so
my goodness.
Yep, that's kind of what I experienced in that room. So I normally speak with adults, but this time the opportunity came for high school students. So like, I don't know how it's gonna go, but I do know my topic, so we're gonna show up. And
Yeah.
just showing up, like some of them had kept it for years, and some of them
Mhm.
had like one of the girls had lost like 9 people, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
So just sitting there with them and teaching them how to be present in their body as well, because
yeah.
sometimes when we check out, we're not even present with our body. We don't know what's happening, which can happen to a lot of us service members with like pain. We
Mhm,
keep going, we're ignoring the pain, right? It exists, but we don't
mhm.
in our brains, we're gonna keep going. So it's like a survival mechanism. I'm not gonna talk to you about it because
Yeah,
it's gonna hurt, and if it hurts, I don't know if I'm gonna be okay.
yeah.
And so I'm so happy to hear that that conversation
I
has been
am too. I
that
mean, that is so
crossed my heart.
freeing for her.
Ooh,
And yeah, it's just
yes.
and more of this needs to be talked about because it's a scary it just everybody always talks about coming into the world. Like
Mm,
babies coming into the world, and then
yep.
have this celebration, this party, and so forth and so on. But then
Mhm.
when they leave the world, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now, right? And having to
Yeah.
deal with all the things that come with losing a loved one. And Chevy says she likes what I share in this room stays in the room. I know she's driving, so
That's
but
okay.
that's a good thing to share as a ground rule, so that way
Yeah.
people can be respected in that moment,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, in some of the culture that we have, like it can be damaging. But when
Yeah,
we're in like a group setting where we're talking about, grief or something like that, then it's important. So it's
yeah,
like, situational based.
yeah. And then we have Cherise. So this is helping her so much. Since losing her mom in March, she has struggled and still struggled to figure out what's next. I
Hmm.
felt like it had to be a certain pathway. And what I'm learning is I can be on different paths and still move forward.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like,
Absolutely.
you
And I'm
know,
I'm sorry for your loss, Sharice, as
me too.
well. But I
Yeah.
know, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like there is no like, I mean, we have some books that we can read, but there's no like Sharice survival guide, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to create it. And it can look however you want it to look, but I think
Mm,
it's how it feels, right? It's got to feel good. So,
yeah.
when we're thinking about like what's next, what feels good to me? Okay,
Yeah.
right now I need to cry and put my phone on do not disturb. I'm gonna let everybody know I'm okay, but I need this
Mhm.
moment for me. you
Yeah.
know, and I'm gonna fall apart. And then I'm
Mhm.
gonna pick myself back up and I'm gonna order that pizza and I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna, you're gonna do the things that feel good for you. That's what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Sharice.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing. We're sharing because people are going through at different stages. And
Mhm.
okay, so Camille says the reasons for grief are so complex. My daughter said she was resentful that
Mhm.
she didn't have good memories of him, and we did.
Yep.
She didn't know him like we did because her father was sick her whole life.
Mm.
Has no clue. Sometimes having an outside person is critical.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
it sounds like there's different versions. I think I experienced that at my dad's funeral too.
Mm,
We like my siblings and we had different versions of him. And I'm the youngest, so I got the version of him that was like going to church and stuff. So my version is a little bit different than their version, and I think it's important. That's why my book is called Holding Space too, because
yeah.
I hold space for all of that. All of it's present, and we're just going to give each one its stage. So
Yeah.
okay, we got resentment on the stage right now. Tell me about it. We got sadness next. Okay, let's tell me about it. That movie, Inside Out and Inside
Yeah.
Out 2, where they got the little
Uh-huh.
character. It's a beautiful description of what goes on inside of our brains. And it is okay for us to let each one of those things, kind of express itself. If I'm sad,
Yeah.
angry, if I'm anxious or whatever, each one of them is trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Mm.
When you just said that, everyone had a different version of your loved one, is same for us.
Oh
My
yeah.
relationship with my dad was different from the relationship with my sisters and my brother. And I had to like acknowledge that and tell myself, like, you can't expect everyone to feel the same way as you do,
Right.
or to take in information the same way as you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair. And everyone had a different relationship and experience.
Yeah.
So, you have
So
to
we're gonna
respect
honor
that.
them all. Yes.
Yeah, you
Yeah, we're
do.
gonna honor them all. And see,
Um,
that's the thing. Like, well, a lot of times that's the this or that, right? It's gotta be this way or it's gotta be that way. No, it's all the ways. We all feel whatever we feel.
yeah, yeah. Leslie was like, people need to stop saying you need to get over that by now.
Listen, okay, yes, because some people, oh my gosh, some of the most insensitive things are said when we're grieving. Especially think about a child, right? Losing a child is a non-normative loss. It is
Hmm.
not supposed to happen that way. We
Hmm.
know eventually one day we're going to lose our parents, but we
Yeah.
don't ever think that we're going to lose our kid, even though it's 1 in 4 women that experience miscarriage,
Mm.
stillborn, infant lost, you name it, infertility. Like there's so many components to that, but I can remember some of the things that were said to me, like, "Oh, you're young, you can have another one," or like,
Mhm.
"She's in a better place." People always they mean well, and we may have even said these things, right?
That's
But
right.
it's never from a bad place, but it can be insensitive, like a better place. What better place than with her mother? Like
That's right.
and so obviously we mean well when we say these things, but sometimes it's better to not. Sometimes it's just put your hand on my shoulder or something. Don't tell me I can have another one because that's not going to help me.
Right. I'm loving all of this information and conversation. And y'all know we talk about, leadership, wellness, and mindset,
Yeah,
and personal empowerment here on this show. And this is all encompassing because, as a leader, because you were in the military, and in the military, y'all, they train us to become leaders. That's one of the um ways that they get, we get promoted as we
yeah.
show that we have leadership skills and so forth, and we can demonstrate that. And
Hmm.
then now, we're both out of that element, and now it's more so self leadership,
Yeah.
guiding ourselves and And what's one thing that you think that you have taken away from your experience in the military that now in the leadership aspect that you use now today?
Hmm. That's a great question. One thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I tie it back to resilience
Mm-hmm.
because even in the moments where it wasn't great, like my military experience as a whole, um, there was a lot of moments that weren't great.
Mm-hmm.
I still credit it, as being a part of my story and making me who I am today. However, I think resilience is the biggest thing I've taken from that because no matter what happens, it's not going to keep me down. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what inspired my book, my second book, because I was young going into the military. And so because these things are happening to me, I didn't want to grow. I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I don't want that promotion. I'm good actually. And what happened was that kept me where it kept me to where I was not as great as I could have been. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm in the army. We supposed to be all we could be.
Right.
But in that moment, I didn't want to. So, but now I do. Like it stunted my growth, I will say, just for the moment. But I
Mm-hmm.
did not allow it to continue. And I don't want for other people to get stuck there. And that's the one foot in front of the other. That's the resilience of, you know what, that happened
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate. I don't like it or condone it,
Yeah.
but it happened. And so because it happened, I'm going to move forward in this way. It allows me to plan better. It allows me to speak on some of these things so that the next person ain't got to go through that, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I will say resilience is my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. And then I saw your hashtags was hashtag redefined resilience.
Yes, so I tell people resilience is not just pushing through. There's so
Mm,
many other layers of resilience, right? Like resilience is falling apart some days if that's what I need to do. Resilience is taking that nap if that's what I need to do. Or it could be, uh-oh, I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm a soldier through. That all of it.
yeah.
It's way more than, just push through, it's way more than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that, you are in your element. You are helping others, supporting them through their journey. Um, you know, it's so important for us to like think about who we are and how we show up. And
Hmm.
how do we want to be perceived by other people when we're out in the world?
Yes.
And you could either stay in a place where you feel like you can't do anything more, or you can explore, the edges. I always say explore the edges, get out your comfort zone,
Hmm.
see what the possibility is, tap into that, potential that is not being tapped. Well, it's not being tapped into, right? It's just
Yeah.
you need to maximize your life, if you will,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And I think that, you going through this and actually writing it out, and you have this framework, right?
Hmm.
It's called STARS.
Yeah.
Can
Yep.
you explain to them, to our audience, what that is?
Yeah, so my STARS framework stands for self awareness. So I think that's kind of where you need to start. You're not going to change or fix anything if you don't have self awareness. So that's the reflecting, the sitting and being honest, completely honest with yourself. And
Mm.
the T
Which is a
stands
hard thing to do.
absolutely, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know how. So then we need a
Yeah.
third party to help us do that. The T stands for thought transformation. So then the next step is like, okay, let's transform some of these ways of thinking. If we're talking about that black or white, it's got to be this or that. Well, where's the middle ground? Let's start to think that way. Let's find the gray areas, because a lot of things have a gray area. So
Mhm.
that's the T. The A is authenticity. So I want people to show up authentic. If you're hurting, you're hurting. If you don't
Mhm.
have the capacity to do that task, ask somebody else to help you. Like
Right.
as leaders, we got to do that too. We can't just act like everything's okay all the time. No, we're human. Let's show up authentic. Let's ask for what we need. The R stands for radical acceptance. That's, kind of what we've been talking about this whole talk, going back to like, I don't have to like it or condone it, but it is what it is. And it's important for us to be able to do all of those things. And the last S is success, because that's what it takes to be successful. We have to do all of these things in order for us to be successful. And then how do we have sustainable success, right? We're not just talking about today. We need every day. So some of these things are skills that we have to practice over and over and over again. So that's what I've included that in the book.
Yeah, I loved it because I was like, I'm going to use this from here on out. Yeah, because it's good to remember. And, sometimes we need tools, we need like ticklers to think about, okay, let's stop for a minute and really like figure this out in a methodical way. Now, Dwayne, I did like my mouth was open when you were talking because I saw his comment come up.
Okay, let's see.
And you know what? This is so, oh my goodness. Okay. First, I'll say this. I apologize for the grammar on my first message. I lost my daughter during a deployment. I told my unit that my wife was having a complicated pregnancy. I was only asking them to allow to be switch placing with another service member. I wasn't shown any empathy. I told myself whenever I get into a position, and he was in the Marine Corps, he got to a higher role. And so I know things were different, but this right here,
unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. How, as leaders, do we not show empathy for something like that? And that's what fires me up, and that's why I'm like, okay, I gotta speak to the leaders, because at this point, somebody got to stop this stuff. And when somebody's going through something so terrible, right? Like, how would you not say, hey, take all the time you need, so and so over here can do it? But they don't care. And that's the thing. And it's so terrible. Like, it's just like a job, right? That if that happens to you and you got to take off or you're fired or whatever, they're gonna have your position listed, a day later. And it's just not okay. And I'm sorry for your loss as well, Dwayne.
I am too.
I have a heart for that, because I've lived it. We part of a club that we ain't never asked to be part of. So I definitely understand. But that just fires me up that people like, and I hear it over and over and over
all
again.
The time.
It's just unacceptable.
All the time. And, and especially in the conform environments, like military environments, where they feel like the mission's got to keep going, all this other stuff in the background. We don't care, we got to get on down range. And, what state is the person in when they're out there and thinking, what is happening back home?
Right.
That, and so that is, there is a strong push for empathetic leadership, to, instill that into our leaders so they understand what it means and what the actions are to it. Because you could talk about it all day, but if you're not showing it, I mean, then that's a whole nother walk that you're walking. And that is a rough and hard walk. And he said that wasn't happening underneath my watch.
And you must be a great leader, Dwayne, because I like that. That's why I am and do what I do, because I had to become what I needed, right? Because I didn't get it. I didn't get any compassion, any empathy, but not on my watch, right? Like, just like Dwayne said, not on my watch. If somebody comes to me and they're hurting, and no matter what's going on, I'm gonna hold space for them. I have to, because if I don't, then who am I? And that same leader that they experience would want that empathy if that's what they were going through. It's just that they're not. And it's so sad.
Yeah. And so, like you said, this is more common to be a non-normative, this is not normal, to have these situations happen to you.
Yeah.
So that even requires more, understanding of, well, what do you need? How can we support you? What is
Mhm.
the best case scenario? All these different elements to go through. And it's not just one person's job. Now, when we were in the military, it used to be like, go to the first sergeant, because I was a first sergeant for 4 years. And so
Yeah.
they would be like, go to the first sergeant, let them figure that out. No, this is a community effort. This is everyone taking a part of understanding the situation, what it requires for a person to find their way through that, whatever the resources that they need. Because they're there. It's just sometimes people just refuse to get you there for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy because with these employers, right? Like this is the thing that will actually save you a turnover. Like if you ask me, am I okay? If you are trying to take care of me as an employee, then I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna feel like I'm seen, heard, and understood. So you're not gonna have to train somebody new to come in. If you let me take my time off to grieve, I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times that somebody has said, "Oh, well, I lost my mom on Friday and I was back to work on Monday because I
Mhm.
had to be," and it's terrible. We have terrible grief policies in corporate America. And it's a lot of work that has to be done. And that look, I can only play my role, but I'm certainly, we need to change it somehow.
Yeah, we do. I agree. Dwayne has a follow on to the story. I was a sergeant at the time, and guess what? Years later, when I was deployed to Afghanistan, a young service member had a similar situation, and I
Mhm.
told my staff to send them home. I was a colonel.
Oh my
God
God.
is faithful.
Listen, full circle moment.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
you know,
Wow.
and so he was able to make it happen, so it can happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
so
proof right here. And not only that, but Dwayne could have absolutely took the other way and said, you know what? I ain't get it. So
exactly.
so they ain't gonna get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I love that. Man. Okay, Camille says you can't afford not to because you deal with the effects of a bitter truth far longer than the time it would take to let them grieve or be there for their families in times of difficulty. One day off can make a world of difference in a person's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because our emotions, like, they're up and down, especially during grief. I might be okay today. I might be able to fully perform. But then
Yeah.
tomorrow I need off because I'm exhausted from what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
And if we just have a little bit of compassion and empathy and show up as a human being,
Hmm.
it's absolutely okay, even in the military. Like,
Yeah.
it's just we got to do the mission. We know mission first, but at the same time, if there is a way for somebody to have some downtime after experiencing something so traumatic, give it to them. If you can make it happen, why not?
Exactly. This brings up a lot of thoughts for me too. Like,
Mm,
during COVID, there was a lot of airmen who lived in cities where there was a high number of COVID cases, and
mm,
those airmen could not go home because of the high number of their families. Some lost mothers, fathers, siblings, but those that lived in rural areas that had a low cases were able to go.
hmm,
And so, sometimes I go back to that moment and think about what their grieving journey is looking like,
mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm.
because it's a very hard place to be in when you know that you can't even be there in the moment
Yeah,
because of the world and whatever, is taking place.
out of our
And
control.
yeah, and then so how is that person showing up now?
Yep,
You know?
yep. And that has lasting effects.
It does.
And I think, like in my private practice, I see a lot of first responders and military folks that have complex trauma, and the things are not happening today that are affecting them. They've
Mhm.
already happened, but it's just because that happened, now I gotta always be there because if I leave, something bad might happen, or whatever narratives come from that kind of stuff. So we have to kind of talk about it. We have to face it. We have to feel it to heal it. And if we
Mhm.
don't, we're creating a whole nother problem.
Yeah. I like that you just said that. We got to feel it to heal it.
I probably say that every day.
You do?
I'm like,
And
we
this
gotta
is the first time
feel
I've
it.
ever heard of that before.
We gotta feel it too. It's
Yeah.
true though, like,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to grief or any of our pain points, right? If we don't visit it, then it just becomes this monster in the closet that keeps growing until it affects us in a way that we may not even know right away. But then once we do find out, now it's a complex PTSD. There's
Mm.
multiple events that have happened rather than we caught it for that one, we processed it. Because life is gonna have a bunch of curveballs,
Yeah.
and we have to navigate each one as they come.
Yeah. So this has been really great. I'm like, I'm just so impressed. I'm so impressed with you because just by meeting you and hearing your story and where you are at today. And listen, y'all, she just got her doctorate degree. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, that tells me that you're a highly driven, ambitious woman who has had a lot of obstacles and adversities in their life, but has decided to move in such a way where you're wanting to know more and then to be able to help more people. And you told me you got out of the practice. There was a lot of things that were happening that were not in alignment to what you were trying to do. So now you've got your practice here, like a virtual, right? You doing virtual
Yep,
practice
yep,
and you have your clients and now you're seeking to do more speaking, more facilitating workshops because, you said it's time for you to get from like the one to ones, if you will, and look to see how you could do one to many.
absolutely.
Because in this time that we have right now, there are a lot of people who are hurting and in pain, in silence about this pain, and to have you to go in and to help them in such a way, like, shoot, I'll sit in your chair all day.
Listen, that's what I mean. That is a passion of mine because I know I'm like, okay, so if you want to be a better leader, like you want to, but you don't have the steps. Okay, I got you. Come on, let's do some work. Like
Yeah,
let's roll our sleeves up and get to the bottom of what's happening with you, and
yeah,
then let's do better because that's what we're here for. So I love doing that type of work, and yeah, one to one does it gets draining and I only have a certain amount of hours in a day. So I'm like, oh,
yeah,
one to many model looks much better for me at this stage in life.
yeah. I agree. That's what I'm shooting to. And Janko said, congrats.
Thank you so much. I
Okay,
appreciate
and
it.
then Camille says, I think we do what we can when we are in the position to do something. Communication through times when we can't is important. Pandemic was a different beast, but
Hmm.
in regular times, we can often do more than we think.
Absolutely. Like each and every one of us can do something,
Mhm.
on a smaller scale, holding people accountable, you know,
Mhm.
that part, because there's so many times where I hear there's an opportunity to set a boundary, but somebody shies away from it because it's going to be uncomfortable rather than, speaking up for themselves in a respectable way,
Right.
I'm in a meeting and my boss yelled at me or something like that. First of all, when I hear somebody say a boss yelled at me, I just stop right there because
You said,
who
stop.
you talking to? Like, because I'm confused. Who you talking to? 'Cause just like it's not your kid here, so why are you yelling in the first place? But but beyond that, right? It hurt your feelings, but so you told them you were sick or something like. No, you are sick. They hurt your feelings, and you're about to tell them that they hurt your feelings. You don't have to do it right then and there or be reckless or anything like that. But maybe a side conversation. Hey, actually, the reason why I excuse myself is because of how you were talking to me. It
Mhm.
upset me because that holds them accountable. Now they may not change. We ain't responsible for them, but I'm not gonna be sitting at home thinking about it later because I didn't say nothing.
That's right.
And so there's certain skills, the delicacy of it, if you will, but
Mhm.
we can still speak up for ourselves even in those settings.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard
Mhm.
people getting yelled at. I've witnessed people getting yelled at, grown
I
folks
mean,
getting yelled at, and I was just
outside of the
like,
military,
"You
who
gonna
yells at
take that?"
you?
I said, No."
But I mean, in the military, it's acceptable, right? Somebody will
Oh
be
yeah,
yelling. But
yeah.
once we get out and we're in the civilian world, who are you talking to? Because you ain't talking to me. Like,
You got
it's
the
so
wrong one.
it's so many things though. But like even just speaking up that one time might bring some self-awareness to the person. It's not a responsibility to do that. My responsibility is to be okay with myself at the end of the day. So
Yeah,
I am gonna say something every
yeah,
time.
that's right. Listen, y'all. I don't know what else more to say. We could probably be on here for 2 or 3 hours, and I know I'm going to honor your time, because it is Sunday night, and we got to get to work and do all the things and everything that for the
Oh, yeah.
week for Christmas and stuff. But I do want to give you a little bit of time to talk to us about anything that you want to share, that you want to leave with us, before we go. And then I have another question for you.
Okay. As for things to share, I think I shared it all. But I am gonna, I mean, business wise, I'm looking forward to planning my first retreat 2025 for leadership, and I'm gonna collaborate, and we're gonna have like financial knowledge and all of that. It's gonna be really good. Putting the final details on that. So, if anything, I would say join my email list so that you can know about those details if it interests you.
That's right. And so it's Arielle Jordan. You have it there?
ArielleandJordan.com. Don't forget the N.
The N. I'm gonna write it into the comments. Y'all, please make sure you subscribe, especially if you are in the DMV area, um, because then you can find out when it is coming or when it's happening, and then that way we can all be a part of it.
Yes.
Um, is it big A?
No,
Okay, I just want to make sure I get it.
small a, but yeah, I actually put the landing page up yesterday, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, join my email list. I always will do like a LinkedIn newsletter, and then I will push it out to my email list as well. So that way, if you want to stay in the know, that's how you stay in the know. And then follow me on social media.
Yes, and then listen, y'all. If you have podcasts and shows, please reach out to her so she can be on your show. We need to get her on more stages to talk about this mental health resiliency and how we can show up better for the people around us.
Yes.
Leslie says, great show as usual. And she says, thank you. You're welcome, madam. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Okay, your last question, then, Queen,
Okay.
is when you turn 80, if God gives you those years,
Okay.
what would you want your family and friends to say about you?
Hmm. I would want them to say that she continued to live even when her daughter did not, and she
Mhm.
was selfless. She wanted to help others succeed, and she did, and she kept going, and she never stopped.
Yeah, man, that's so beautiful because you are. You're living it out. You're living, with her in mind, and you're going to be doing so many great things. And I can't wait to just see it. I'm going to be a sideline just watching it and just cheering you on. Come into this great segment as usual, Rochelle. Thanks for sharing your heart, Arielle. Have a wonderful week. And Sadisha came on here. Sadisha, go back to the show, the beginning of the show. If you missed any of this, She is going to warm your heart because y'all two, all right,
That
collaborators and
I feel like
partnering.
it's a big family.
Yes, so absolutely. So it's always good to know that we're in good good community here. She said 2 snaps.
Okay. Oh,
I
my
slid
friend
in
does
late.
that. Oh.
That's okay, Glenroy. You know, all you got to do is push the rewind button and go back and watch it again. All right. But thank you so much for showing up. Um, and all the folks that came in alive, Camille, Sharice, Betty, which is mom, Leslie, Dwayne, Chevy. Did I say Camille already? I think I said Camille already. Okay. And Jan Quill and Sadeja and Glenroy. So thank you so much, everyone. Dwayne said, Jesus said, in this world we have tribulations, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world.
Oh,
Amen.
and in addition to that, I want to say, like, I don't know which verse it is, but in my head, what came is do not grow weary in doing good, because in due time you'll reap your harvest. So I don't know who that's for, but that's what came in my head after you read that.
That's for everybody. I receive that. Everybody.
Take what you need, leave what you don't.
Oh my goodness. And then Camille says, Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, happy holidays, everyone. Please be safe. Thank you again, Dr. Arielle, for being here with me tonight and dropping so many great gems and giving us hope and inspiration as we go into the holiday season. Everyone, please be well. I will be back here probably in about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, just depending on the schedule, because it is the holiday. Okay. Dr. Arielle, I think you are the last person for the year on this show. So thank you for closing out this year on such a great topic that we all need. So as you know, y'all, keep on slaying until you can't slay no more. And we will see you all soon. Love y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Goodbye.